كلبة يا كلبة.
Ôi.
어서妹妹어서多咪어서
咪咪啊！哎呦哎呦哎呦，倒了倒了倒了！哎呦，
你在干啥？何？
哎呦，
In a small, peaceful town nestled between rolling hills, there lived a dog named Max. He was a golden retriever, with fur as soft as silk and eyes full of warmth and loyalty. Max was more than just a pet to his owner, Lucy. He was a companion, a friend, and a member of the family. Every morning, Lucy and Max would take long walks together, enjoying the fresh air and the gentle breeze. Max loved these moments, especially when they would stop by the local park, where he could chase after balls and play with other dogs. Life was simple and perfect, and Max never imagined that anything could take that happiness away. One rainy afternoon, as Lucy and Max walked home from the park, a loud noise startled Max. It came from a passing car that honked unexpectedly. Max, frightened and confused, bolted from Lucy's side, running as fast as his legs could carry him. Lucy screamed his name, but Max didn't stop. He dashed through the streets, weaving between parked cars and disappearing into the dense woods on the edge of town. Lucy's heart pounded in her chest as she searched frantically for her beloved dog. She called out his name, hoping he would hear her, but the woods were quiet and still. Hours passed, and soon the sun began to set, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. Lucy's fear grew with every passing minute. The thought of Max being alone in the wild, cold and frightened, tore at her heart. She returned home, helpless, her mind racing with worry and uncertainty. Over the next few weeks, Lucy did everything she could think of. She put up flyers around the neighborhood, shared photos of Max online, and reached out to local shelters and rescue organizations. But Max seemed to have vanished without a trace. Lucy couldn't understand how such a strong bond could be broken so suddenly. The pain of losing him lingered, and every corner of her house seemed to remind her of the dog that was no longer there. As the days turned into weeks, Lucy's hope began to fade. She tried to keep herself busy, but there were moments, especially at night, when she couldn't stop thinking about Max. She wondered if he was out there somewhere, still searching for her, or if he had already found a new home. The thought of never seeing him again was unbearable, but Lucy refused to give up. She held on to the belief that, one day, Max would return. 2 months had passed since Max had run off. The pain of his absence hadn't lessened, and Lucy felt the weight of every day without him. She continued to look for him, visiting local animal shelters, putting out fresh flyers, and even driving around the town in hopes of spotting his familiar golden coat. But nothing. Every lead turned out to be a dead end. On one particularly quiet afternoon, as Lucy sat in the park where she and Max used to play, she thought she saw something out of the corner of her eye. It was a dog, not quite the same, but something about the way it moved reminded her of Max. Her heart skipped a beat, but before she could get up, the dog ran off, disappearing into the trees. Lucy sat there for a long time, tears welling in her eyes. She knew she had to keep going, but the pain was starting to feel unbearable. It had been 2 months and still, there was no sign of Max. She had lost track of time, and sometimes she wondered if it was worth continuing the search. But deep down, a flicker of hope kept her going. That night, as Lucy sat in front of her computer, she came across a post on a local lost and found pet page. It was a photo of a golden retriever found in a neighboring town, looking lost and disoriented. The dog was wearing a collar, but it didn't look like Max. Still, Lucy couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. She clicked on the post and read the description. The dog had been found wandering near a highway, hungry and exhausted. The poster mentioned that the dog had been taken to the local animal shelter. Without a second thought, Lucy grabbed her coat and rushed to the shelter. Her heart raced with anticipation as she stepped inside, looking around at the dogs in their cages. She asked the attendant if there was a golden retriever among the animals, and the attendant pointed to a cage in the back corner. Lucy walked slowly, her breath catching in her throat. There, lying on the cold concrete floor, was a dog that looked eerily familiar. The golden fur, the gentle eyes, the way the dog held its head. It was Max. Lucy gasped, her hands trembling as she opened the cage door. Max lifted his head and stared at her, a look of recognition and relief in his eyes. Without a word, Lucy dropped to her knees and pulled Max into her arms, her heart bursting with joy. Max licked her face, his tail wagging furiously as he whimpered with happiness. The reunion between Lucy and Max was a moment of pure happiness, a moment they had both longed for during their separation. Lucy couldn't believe that after 2 months of uncertainty, her dog was finally home. She couldn't stop hugging him, feeling the warmth of his body against hers, the comforting rhythm of his breath. Max, too, seemed to feel the same way. He nuzzled her face with his wet nose, his tail thumping against the floor in excitement. The attendant who had helped Lucy was equally as excited. She had seen many reunions in her time working at the shelter, but none were as emotional as this one. She could see the deep bond between the woman and her dog, and she smiled as Lucy led Max out of the shelter. The walk back home was unlike any other. Lucy held Max's leash tightly, but she didn't need to. Max stayed close, his head held high, his eyes filled with joy. They walked through the park where they had shared so many happy memories, and Max's tail wagged in a way that made Lucy laugh out loud. The once painful silence between them was now filled with the sound of laughter and contentment. When they finally arrived home, Lucy opened the door and let Max inside. He immediately ran to his favorite spot by the window, settling down on the soft rug. Lucy sat beside him, her hand resting on his fur. For the first time in 2 months, she felt complete again. Max was home, and nothing else mattered. That night, as Lucy lay in bed, with Max curled up beside her, she whispered softly, "I knew you'd come back to me." Max raised his head, looked in her eyes, and gave a small, contented sigh, as if to say, "I'm home, and I'm never leaving again." The pain of the past months was now replaced by an overwhelming sense of happiness and gratitude. They had both endured the loneliness, the worry, and the uncertainty, but now they were together again. And nothing in the world could ever take that away.